Hey guys, Kyle here. So, just before the show starts, I wanted to mention our Patreon. You can pay us $1 a month as a thank you, as a tip. You can pay $2 a month to get access to one of our bonus content shows, episodes 2 days early, and a secret Discord chat where all of our Patreon donors get to go and hang out and talk with us directly. Then there's a $5 tier that you can donate to get access to a whole bunch more content. We have multiple bonus episodes on there, so please check it out. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We don't advertise, we don't make money, so check it out and throw us some money if you think that would be cool. Thanks. Welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try and make your world a little weirder. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Niall, and today I've been plagued by images of I guess there was a trailer for that new Street Fighter movie, and then there's also like WrestleMania this weekend. So I've been seeing Cody Rhodes dressed up as Guile and was doing live events at like fan stuff at. So like I saw Cody Rhodes cut like a short like promo as Guile in front of the cast of Street Fighter, and it's like that movie looks like a video game cutscene, a bunch of video game. You know when they take like people will take all the cutscenes from a game and just put them as a compilation on YouTube.
Yeah, that's what it looks like to you.
That's what it looks like to me, you know? And maybe I'm wrong and it'll be great and fans will love it and it'll be the best video game movie ever. I don't know, but it looks fucking wild, I'll tell you that much.
First of all, Niall, I really appreciate your use of the phrase plagued by images, because I think that's just a general term for living in 2026 that we can embrace. People are not talking about the plague of images, just in general. That's a huge problem.
In general, you don't like read news or anything. You are plagued by images by opening your phone, and that is really how it feels how it feels on this bitch from Earth.
100%. And it sucks because there was a time in my life where I truly loved to see images online. That is slowly cracking for me. I no longer wish to see images in general. So I've been doing a lot of sticking to text lately. But to your Street Fighter thing, I don't really have a huge stake in that. I was never. You and I, we dabbled in fighting games. We had our fun with fighting games.
We played a decent. I played a decent amount of Flying Dragon.
Yep.
I was a
Classic.
big. I was always a Soul Calibur person.
I love. Yeah. We play that together? I remember playing that with our college buddies. Playing that with like Chris and stuff. That I do love Soul Calibur. Soul Calibur 2 was like one of my favorite games for years, and I haven't played it in so long. But
we were doing the like story mode, the like adventure mode thing where you have to go with like a created character through a bunch of missions and shit. But yeah, we fighting games were always fun until somebody got mad. That was same with Smash Bros.
Yeah, 100%. Well, like I said, I don't have a big stake in Street Fighter or anything, but friend of the show shouts out because he actually might be listening. Vince is a long time. Vince, we love you. Vince is a long time Street Fighter fan, like since he was a kid. And I played the latest Street Fighter with him too, and that was a lot of fun playing that with him. So, point is, I will almost definitely be seeing that movie opening day with Vince, so I can get back to you on whether or not the little teaser was like it was like fun, and frankly, you're not really dissuading me by saying Cody Rhodes dressed up as Guile cutting promos, because that actually sounds like something I'd enjoy.
Do you know there are 3 wrestlers involved with this game?
Movie, but
a little bit of a
Freudian
with this movie.
slip.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, there are 3 wrestlers playing Street Fighter characters.
Right. Who were? I know Cody was one of them. Who are the other ones?
So it's Cody. Roman Reigns is playing Akuma.
Right.
And then Shingo Takagi is playing E Honda.
Oh, now I like that too.
Yeah.
That sounds fun. I mean, look, I'll let you know.
Wait, am I confusing? I might be confusing the New Japan guy. That I'll feel bad if that happens, but forgive me, people. It's been a minute since I've looked this up.
It's all good. Anyways, it gets weird. And this is the end of a 3-parter. We have been discussing. So we're going to finish our series on Mae Brussell. We've been discussing her the past 2 episodes. I think it's safe to call her the preeminent conspiracy theorist for her time.
Yeah.
And I say, I sort of talked about this in the first episode. I say conspiracy theorist with more kindness for her than the types of conspiracy theorists we contend with today. Conspiracy researchers may be a better term. Like, I don't want to relitigate the stuff where I was talking about not all her conclusions are something I would agree with, but I think that the research is sound. That's the idea. So yeah, that's what I'm calling her. Preeminent conspiracy theorist of her time. We discussed her life leading up to her career as a conspiracy researcher and a writer and a radio personality. She was doing it all. And we also did a little bit of an overview, without getting too into the weeds, on one of her most well-known pieces of research, which is JFK's assassination and the rise of fascism in America. How her theory kind of runs counter to what I think contemporary researchers of this stuff would say. But it is an interesting place to start, which is basically that the Nazis killed JFK. It's an interesting thing. And we also talked about her history writing for the counterculture magazine The Realist, some of the stories and characters associated with that. So if you've somehow not listened to the last 2 episodes, go check those out and then come back to this one. And this week, we're going to learn about some of her other well-known pieces of research, but I wanted to actually kick off with more of the Nazi stuff a little bit, because there was one thing that I wanted to use to illustrate why you necessarily become the corkboard, red line, dot connecting conspiracy theorist. This is another example of how that stuff, by the nature of researching this stuff, you just kind of have to do that. Yeah. Even though it's now used, they use the Charlie Day picture, the meme, to symbolize I guess lunacy or whatever. But
someone who's lost it. Yeah. No connection to reality.
But just listen to this stuff, which is just let's call it a surface scratcher. Because I'm not actually going deep on this character, but I wanted to bring it up because it's wild. JFK assassination research leads her to talking about Nazism post-World War II, how it sort of was integrated in the United States. And one of the key figures that she picks up in the JFK story, before it's sort of a well-known topic of discussion in the public, is the Waffen-SS Colonel Otto Skorzeny. Okay. Let me give you a little bit of a taste of the dimensions of this thing real quick. So Skorzeny is an absurd figure from which you can start discovering connections to a bunch of deep political events and quote-unquote conspiracies. I mean, actual conspiracies, if we want to call them that. So she points to him as a suspect in the assassination of JFK after discovering that his name, Skorzeny, he's written in the journal of don't ask me to elaborate on this, a CIA assassin going by the name Pierre Lafitte, which is also the name of a famous 19th century pirate. So just I see what don't ask.
I'm just taking it in. I'm just letting it wash over me, because that's I don't feel like I ever had a handle on where that sentence was going.
No, I mean, it is definitely one of those sentences. I mean, I don't really... I found very little information about Pierre Lafitte online, but there was discussion where people were basically saying... I think somebody was saying that there's some rumor that he's actually the descendant of the pirate, this CIA assassin, and I don't think that Pierre Lafitte is this person's real name. But this is supposedly okay. Brussels' source is this journal that this assassin had. I wish I had more detail. I need to there's a lot of reading and radio archive listening to get information about Mae Brussell that I simply have not had time for. But, it's sort of like my excursion with Art Bell over the last however many years, just listening to archives of his show. Mm-hmm. I'll probably start turning on some Mae Brussell and just see if I can listen for things like this from, I want to know where she, learned about this journal, the Journal of Lafitte.
You should put Mae Brussell and chill on your Tinder profile and see what happens.
Oh God!
See if you can find anyone real chill.
That would be fucking sick. The one person in the state of Indiana who's I'm also a Brussels sprout.
Yeah,
I don't know if I would. I don't know if I would go so far as to say I'm a Brussels sprout, but I do respect a lot of this. So, anyways, Skorzeny. Just this story is ridiculous. So Skorzeny, the Nazi, had escaped the tribunal at the Dachau trials in 1947 when a former British intelligence agent called FFE Yeo Thomas shows up and testifies in Skorzeny's defense. And this leads to the acquittal of this Nazi. And him testifying was because Skorzeny had led this operation where they had basically snuck in to... I don't remember. I didn't write this part down. Basically, they conducted a false flag operation dressed as the enemy.
Okay.
And this British intelligence officer... Yeah, this British intelligence officer comes in and is just well, we were going to do the exact same thing, so, honestly, who's really to blame here? Let's let this guy go.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
insane.
Such a sketch comedy bit. They find the other people doing what they were about to do. Well, let's all go home.
Yep.
All right.
It's so ridiculous. So he's acquitted, and then Scorsese?
I've been thinking that this entire time, and I was wondering if you were going to do it.
I did not. I don't know. I might not be pronouncing this guy's name right, but Skorzeny would later go on to become recruited as an asset for the Mossad, which is Israel's intelligence agency. So, just let this sink in. A Nazi working for the intelligence agency of Israel, and after getting out of all this stuff, he would just continue to just Nazi shit up around the world until his death. After this acquittal, and then later, he escaped from prison after that, too. He was in prison, he escapes. Skorzeny then flees to Bavaria, and he hides on a farm there that was being rented out by the niece of Adolf Hitler's former finance minister.
Jesus, okay.
And while he's there, Skorzeny would come into contact with somebody named Reinhard Gehlen. Reinhard Gehlen is a man who has been nicknamed Hitler's super spy. And Gehlen would work in collaboration with the CIA to set up a post-war German intelligence agency called the Gehlen Organization, or the Org. So...
Jesus, okay.
This is who Skorzeny's hanging out with in Bavaria. Probably drinking fresh cow's milk or something.
Sure.
So through this contact in Bavaria, Skorzeny would be recruited to Gehlen's organization. In other words, Skorzeny was working for both the Mossad and the CIA in his post-World War II career, in which he was a high-ranking Nazi. Just to be abundantly clear. He would also receive this was something that also blew my mind, and I have to read more about what this is. He would receive denazified status. So there was this movement of quote-unquote denazification, where they were, ostensibly the purpose was to stamp out Nazi ideology. So people would, I don't know the details here, but it was people would be vetted and then you could say, okay, you've been denazified.
So you just get purged of your association, I guess.
Sort of. It's again, it's a thing that I want to read more about. And maybe I'm sure that down the road we can find another episode that relates back to the fucking Nazis, that we can then explore what the hell denazification was. As far as I'm concerned, once a Nazi, always a Nazi.
Yeah.
So yeah, he gets denazified, whatever that is. And this status as being denazified would allow him to travel to Spain. I think he stayed mostly in Madrid. And in Spain, he set up the Paladin Group, which was an anti-communist civilian Nazi organization. So again, just to cover where we're at. This is a guy that Mae Brussell has identified as a potential suspect in the assassination of JFK in the United States, but also managed to basically escape tribunals, escape prison, be declared denazified, and then go on to just be a Nazi and do Nazi things and organize Nazi stuff. So he sets up this Paladin Group. He describes it in his own words as, quote, an international directorship of strategic assault personnel that would straddle the watershed between paramilitary operations carried out by troops in uniform and the political warfare which is conducted by civilian agents. Do you see where this is going, Niall? Skorzeny would also provide support and counsel for the Spanish neo-Nazi group that they were affiliated with called the Spanish Circle of Friends of Europe, or CEDADE, so CDADE, whatever. So would it surprise you if I told you that these groups would allegedly become connected to the stay-behind networks of Operation Gladio?
I was waiting for Gladio to get dropped in this. Okay, sure.
That's where all this
So
leads.
we got a contractor involved in all of that shit. Jesus Christ. Okay.
So these guys were involved in all this shit because they were allowed to live freely as long as they worked with ours and Israel's intelligence agencies. Like they essentially were able to just continue Naziing it up.
Yeah, you get immunity if you work for both of these people.
And this is a side thing that I'm going to briefly mention because I was reading how there was like consternation, like murmurs about like bafflement surrounding the discussion of Skorzeny working with Israel. People are like, how is this possible? A Nazi working with the Jewish nation? That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so obviously we've established the CIA's relationship with the Nazis, but Israel has really been no stranger to collaboration with them. So just for the listener, for further reading on the subject, I recommend the paper by Klaus Polkin titled The Secret Contacts, Zionism in Nazi Germany. You can find it for free if you look it up online. Just, Niall, I don't know if you've seen the news. Make sure LinkedIn isn't spying on you, because if you share anything counter to Israel right now, LinkedIn may flag you in a database somewhere. So, anyways, check that out. That's
Hell world.
Yeah. So go check that out, y'all. So Skorzeny, this is just one guy of the, I don't know, hundreds of people that Mae Brussell is looking at to try and, track the movement of fascism and how it developed in the United States and so on. So anyways, moving on to our next section, we're actually already pretty well equipped to understand some stuff about what we're going to talk about. So think back on what we've learned about the world of U.S. intelligence and the application of things like hypnosis and drugs to manipulate people. Remember one of the established goals of projects like those in MK Ultra was to create mind-controlled assassins or, Manchurian candidates. And remember, for Mae Brussell, it's well established that one of the key strategies of pre-war Nazi intelligence, in other words, the CIA's eventual collaborators, was the assassination of political enemies. So she sort of sees this design coming about where the political enemies of intelligence organizations like the CIA are potential targets for murder. And I mentioned in the last episode how Brussell had warned Rose Kennedy that Nixon's opponent, Robert Kennedy, was in danger. And she did this. This was just under a week before RFK Sr. was assassinated. I think I'm going to save the juicy details for a full RFK episode sometime, but here, let me give you the gist. Kennedy, RFK, was apparently shot and killed by a Palestinian man named Sirhan Sirhan. Brussell points out a number of inconsistencies with the official narrative. And this is like, I think I mentioned in one of the last 2 episodes that there is a book on this by a woman named Lisa Pease, who I think is still out there writing. She's still out there. And the story is insane. The story of Sirhan Sirhan and the assassination of RFK is just bizarre. And she would talk about these inconsistencies with the official narrative, as she tended to do. This would be things like Sirhan Sirhan having an 8-shooter, but on the scene, 10 or more bullets were actually fired. So that's a weird discrepancy. It's also pointed out that in the aftermath of the murder, Sirhan Sirhan would be confused and couldn't remember shooting JFK. He also had expressed support for RFK and had been planning to vote for him. These are the kinds of inconsistencies she is talking about. And I think, again, this is just well in advance of people getting in depth in researching the assassination of RFK as, not being legitimate. She's way ahead of the curve, I guess, is what I'm saying. Brussels' official stance would be that Sirhan Sirhan was a real deal CIA brainwashed and hypnotized Manchurian candidate. And I know that this language instantly elevates the thing to like pop culture absurdity. But I'll tell you this much: this is one of the few stories that the more I learn about it, I am like willing to put my foot down on. This shit was fucking weird and not legit. Like it's so bizarre. I'm not entirely shut down on the possibility of something like that. If you do enough stuff to a person, I can see them doing stuff that is not of their own volition. Well, you want to talk about doing stuff. I actually remember when we discussed. So Mae Brussell thinks that Sirhan Sirhan is a patsy, right? So does Lisa Pease, I believe. Remember when we discussed MK Decoy, Niall? Do you remember what that was?
Yeah. I think I remember that
was the CIA project to create a quote-unquote perfect concussion gun where you could induce concussion somewhat covertly and just... we did that forever ago. Look it up, folks, if you want to know about that. But the point is, one of the takeaways from that story is how concussion victims were more pliable as an interrogation subject, or I guess just like the goals of MK Ultra. So like interrogation, mind control, hypnosis, you are a more pliable subject when you have had a concussion. And well before the assassination, Sirhan Sirhan had been training to become a jockey, only to suffer a nasty head injury after a fall. For Brussell and many of the researchers who followed in her wake investigating RFK's assassination, Sirhan Sirhan is a pretty blatant example of the kind of person that you would look for to turn into somebody that you could mind control. I can't remember the details, but there's a whole thing. I believe it was the guy's name was Jeffrey K., the psychiatrist who I got the article on MK Decoy from, where he kind of goes off into this thing where like there were these. I want to say it was in Afghanistan that there were these guys who were taken who had histories of having concussions, head trauma, and were taken to CIA black sites and put under just insane torture. So this is concussions are a recurring theme in people who are involved in assassination of political, targets, I guess. I can't remember. I think I remember reading. This didn't come up in my research here, and I remember hearing this or reading this forever ago. But I think, I want to say Jack Ruby also maybe had a concussion. A concussion in his history that was, noted. And there was, I think, another person in... Anyways, I don't want to, say too much without having the actual material that I remember, reading in front of me. But, the point is, a concussed guy possibly makes for a better mind control subject, is the idea.
Yeah, watching wrestling stuff, you see a lot of brain scans of CTE patients because it appears in a bunch of documentaries and stuff if you watch Dark Side of the Ring. And yeah, I can see how especially repeated concussions could make the brain function very differently. Yeah. It is no joke. It is a fucking... Concussions are scary, man.
It's not good. I mean, it sucks. And you can't necessarily say definitively the CIA is able to mind control people who have had concussions, but that seems to be what's sort of between the lines of a lot of this, right? And concussions are just one of a bunch of different things that they were focused on to try and do all this crazy shit that they were doing. I think the other thing too is just hypnosis was way more prominent as a subject of research than even the drug stuff. The drug stuff is more salacious, right? It's way more popularized in the story of MKUltra, but hypnosis is that was the thing. They had a fucking magician on deck. They had a CIA paid magician. They wanted to manipulate people's perception, and hypnosis, I guess, if it works the way it maybe seems to work, then you're kind of think of the oh my god, there was the guy who was coerced to commit armed robbery and murder under hypnosis and was told that the person dictating these things to him was an angel or something. We talked about that in another episode.
I don't remember the full details of that.
Oh my god!
Yeah, it's
ridiculous.
Hypnosis is one of those things that I truly don't exactly know what to do with.
Same.
And I have vacillated heavily over the years on how far I believe it can go. So who knows? I'm still waiting on a definitive opinion.
I feel like I have to read a book that's just about the science of hypnosis, somebody who's researched it, because I don't know what to believe with that anymore. But the CIA certainly seemed to think it had value.
Yeah, but you also have to make sure that the book you're reading is not from a fucking CIA
right,
op,
and also the CIA was super into pseudoscience. They just were, really into that shit as well. So who fucking knows? But God, the more details you learn about RFK's assassination it's just Sirhan. If I remember correctly, this is not stuff that I read specifically from Mae Brussell, but I remember reading how he had this thing. I have a whole hour-long lecture saved on this exact subject, on YouTube, where Sirhan would enter something. There was something called range mode that he could mentally enter. He also was involved with the Rosicrucians, and
sure. Do you have any idea what range mode was?
Range mode, I don't remember the details, but I think range mode was supposed to be his, like, hypnotic state where he would, like, draw a gun but wouldn't necessarily fire it. So, and there's, like, journals. He had, like, multiple journals that were discovered. And one of the details that completely weirds me out is he would, do automatic writing in the journals. And
Sure.
people, some researchers think that he may have been under instruction for some of this. And then one of those journals, amid all this, like, automatic writing and stuff where he's, like, saying must kill RFK and all that shit, there's just a second person's handwriting that I think it said something. I think the other person who was not Sirhan's handwriting, I think the thing that they wrote in the journal said something to the effect of, this appears to be the correct amount of preponderance. That's what's written in his journal, not by Sirhan's hand. So those are the kind of details where you're just like, I'm taking psychic damage. I'm taking psychic damage reading this.
Yeah, this is, it's like a perfectly formulated internet horror story that is just supposed to, like, there are no answers, there's nothing you can figure out, it's just supposed to make you feel insane.
Yeah, or it actually went down that way and then disseminated into culture to become, the sort of a joke or a trope. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's sort of like the Manchurian Candidate, right? Like, if you're willing to believe this idea that we could create mind-controlled assassins, and I'm laying it down right now, I'm not totally against it conceptually, it being willing to believe that sort of. To what extent that actually functions, and I don't know. I can't sit here and tell you I think, like, I know. But that sort of went out into the culture through things like the Manchurian Candidate and became just the thing of, almost tongue-in-cheek pop culture, right? Like, which is a pretty effective way to make it, not analysis of it not be taken seriously.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
they're seeding the ideas. They're laughing at you.
Yeah. And they are the Jews, as we all know. This is another one of those times where I feel like I have to clarify that I am Jewish and I can make that joke.
And that's why I didn't say it.
Thank you, and thank you, Niall, for stepping aside for me on that. So you may remember how Brussell also would often say how you can draw a direct line. I think I said this quote in another episode where she basically says something to the effect of, you can draw a direct line between the assassination of JFK and the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. and all these other things. She brings up the Symbionese Liberation Army and Patty Hearst, the Manson family. So you can draw a line between these things, according to her. So Brussell insists that James Earl Ray, the man convicted of MLK's assassination, was also some sort of assassination patsy. So when Ray was convicted, he pled guilty in an attempt to avoid the death penalty based on the advice of his attorney, Percy Foreman. I think I read a thing where so Ray later discovered that he had been given bad information by his attorney, by Percy Foreman, because due to a 1967 moratorium, the death penalty would have been unconstitutional, and therefore his death sentence would have been commuted. And so he, like, gets rid of that attorney, and I think he starts calling him Percy Fourflush or something like that. Now, my impression of James Earl Ray, who I think the last time that name would have come up on this podcast is when we did our episode on COINTELPRO, which is due for a revisit. I don't think he was a good guy, but it's the assassination of MLK is a little more complicated than you might think, just because of like when you're taught about it in school, like you're just kind of told, yeah, James Earl Ray, this bad guy, he went and he killed MLK because he's, a Ray. I actually don't remember that. I remember covering this in school, but I don't remember the reason they gave for why MLK was killed. Yeah. But presumably it would have been a race thing, right? I don't remember that.
Yeah, it kind of gets yada yada as like, racial tensions were really high in the country and he got assassinated, and they don't go into the motives of the particular man.
Yeah, so this guy, Ray, he discovers he didn't have to plead guilty, basically. And after he gets rid of this attorney and knows that he knows all this, he starts openly talking about a man who only identified himself by the name Raul. And Ray starts saying Raul is actually the mastermind of the MLK assassination. Like, he is the guy. And Brussell points out that Raul had come into contact with Ray in a Montreal prison in Canada, where Ray was doing time for armed robbery, mail fraud, and just general petty crookery. And I just want to bookmark here. Petty crooks are very important here. Like, we keep that in mind.
Okay.
So this Raul guy, helped break Ray out of prison. And then from there, Ray would travel between the United States and Canada constantly. He was all over the place, just traveling. At one point, he's all over the place. Okay, that's the point. And Brussell, go ahead.
He was really flying at like peak travel. I feel like that was like the 60s and 70s were like the end of like when airlines were really trying to be a luxury service,
Sure.
So he probably was getting a lot of like
miles,
lobster thermidor in the air and shit. No, I don't think they had loyalty programs in the 70s. But he probably did get a lot of hot towels and could smoke on board.
Yeah, well, so I mean, I guess that would have been kind of sick, eating lobster and smoking while flying from Canada to the U.S. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, no little screen on the back of your of the one in front of you, so you can't play. But like when I went to Europe, I played Bejeweled for like 6 hours straight.
Nice.
And then watched like 2 movies, and it was done.
That sounds kind of sick.
Yeah, it worked out.
Well, so Brussell points out that she asks a good question. She says, how did Ray afford to travel all the time? This is not a guy who has money. This is a petty crook who just escaped prison. So the suggestion is that somebody had to have been funding his travels. If you'll recall, also, MLK was assassinated at the Lorraine Motel in Tennessee after his famous "I've been to the mountaintop" speech. You'll remember how years ago when we discussed the FBI COINTELPRO operation, MLK had been getting sent threatening letters telling him to kill himself and stuff like that. And then that gets traced back once COINTEL, breaks as a story. That all gets traced back to the FBI. So... This and this is a thing that happened with Mae Brussell with some regularity, where she gets vindicated by research that's done after her death. So COINTELPRO and the stuff that we now know about it, my understanding is that it was, I think, the 90s when it would come out that this stuff all goes back to the FBI. So she also points out a number of other weird things, like Ray... Get this. At one point in his travels, Ray visits a hypnotist, and he also had a collection of books on hypnotism. Ray also had no way of knowing that MLK was staying at the Lorraine, so she suggests that he would have had to have been instructed to check into the room that he would end up allegedly shooting MLK from. And then Ray would later say, like his actual words, like the way he describes it, this fits again into Brussell's idea here. He would later say something to the effect of, I didn't kill MLK, or it was maybe more like I was involved in the assassination plot without realizing it.
Okay.
So again, I don't know whether we would necessarily say he's a mind-controlled assassin or not, but The heavy implication here is that he may have been also a patsy. That's what Brussell thinks.
I feel like every major political assassination of the last however many years, there's a story that the person who did it is actually someone else. Like,
yeah,
it is a very common thing for these. And I'm not saying anything about the validity of this theory. It just is. It's interesting how there is a theory like this for like everything.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. There's, I'm not even going to bring up the elephant in a room with you saying that, because there's one relatively recent one that I saw lots of discussion about, people basically calling this person a patsy. But I also don't really know what to make of it. I also don't really know what to make of James Earl Ray as Emmett. Like, I don't know what to make of that, but point is, Brussell seems to think that Raul was the, I don't know, maybe CIA or FBI influence, COINTELPRO operative, perhaps. But, like, it is like when you read something where it's like, yeah, you grow up knowing about, oh, MLK was killed and it's because of racial tension, and you just move on with the history. And then you go and you read that there was this extremely weird aside where the guy insisted a one-named shady person named Raul broke him out of prison and was the key operative behind MLK's assassination. It is odd. It's like, okay, I didn't know about that shit.
Yep.
Very strange. Brussell also likes to dismantle like the legal procedures that happen around these stories. So she points out how the prosecution's primary witness against Ray, this guy Charles Stevens, was apparently completely drunk at the time of the killing. And that's just the guy that the prosecution goes with. They're like, that's our witness, the guy who was like nearly blackout drunk. Again, knowing what we know about how our intelligence agencies and the existence of programs like COINTELPRO and MKUltra, how this can inform analysis of these kinds of events, Mae Brussell was aware of how these operations could function. Like, So, point is, James Earl Ray, she thinks he was a patsy. My personal statement, I feel like I actually don't know enough about the story of MLK's assassination to plant a flag anywhere. Unlike how I feel about RFK. That's one where I listened to some stuff and read some stuff on it, and I was like, there's no goddamn way. That one's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
So let's enter the Mae Brussell endgame here with some of her research.
Brussels sprouts assemble.
Yeah. That's my secret, Cap. I'm always paranoid. So to close this all out, let's do real brief overviews and about Patty Hearst and the Symbionese Liberation Army, Charles Manson, and Project Chaos. Now,
fantastic. Now, we're just do a light 5 on each. This will be
it's kind of what I'm doing here, and I'm going to say this again up front, just in case, somebody decides they want to yell at me, which I would say, folks out there listening, please don't ever yell at me. That's never the right thing to do. Be nice to me. Be nice, and, that would be cool. Don't yell at me. I know that these stories are way deeper than the way I'm presenting them. This is just an overview of sort of the Mae Brussell perspective, okay? So, Also, now I'm curious, are you familiar with Chaos at all? Like, has it come up in other stuff you've researched?
I read like the first couple chapters of that
Tom
book.
O'Neill, yeah. I'm about to mention that,
yeah. And I have come up on it but I've never specifically tried to research Operation Chaos. I've just have butted up against it in various other places.
Tom O'Neill's Chaos is, I think, worth your time if you're willing to read about that. It's pretty wild. And interesting. And, like, also, admittedly, I am the CIA guy on the show, so Chaos is something that pops up all the time for me. Also, how familiar are you with Patty Hearst and the Symbionese Liberation Army?
Only, like, I'm aware of it in a pop culture way.
Like most things with us.
Specifically, I just watched Network, which is not directly doing it. That's not directly covered in it, but there is a kind of knockoff version of them that is involved in that movie, which is interesting. I would recommend that movie.
Wait, what year?
It's really, really, really good.
When is this? I don't know this movie.
80s?
Okay. Who's the director? I don't know this movie.
Sidney Lumet, I think.
Okay.
But let me check.
Okay.
Yeah, Sidney Lumet, 1976.
Oh, 1976. That's an interesting
Faye Dunaway and William Holden, Robert Duvall.
Oh, okay.
Beatty.
Ooh, okay. All right. I'm down.
Yeah, really good movie.
Interesting time for a movie to come out about stuff like that. I'll have to check that out. So again, not a deep dive, little overview here. The SLA Project Chaos, that's stuff I'm definitely going to do deeper dives on in future episodes. I'm not sure how deep I want to go on Manson because it involves some grisly shit.
Yep.
So anyways, let's start chronologically with Manson and the Tate LaBianca murders. I mean, look, for those of you who don't know, Manson and his so-called family, which were apparently a cult in the official narrative, went and killed some people in the Hollywood Hills. Basically, it's if you've seen what's Tarantino's fucking movie,
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, like if you've seen that, you know some of the stuff about the Manson family and Span Ranch and all that. So let's just set this up by saying, remember that the counterculture movement of the 1960s, this is the milieu in which Manson's family was raised and then committed murder in. So something that you'll find good research talking about with regards to Manson is that culturally, the murders sort of feel like a dark bullet in the head of the counterculture itself. Like, and this is sort of where Mae Brussell's coming from too, where like between this and then like the Symbionese Liberation Army, these were things that just felt like a symbol of the end of the counterculture, of the hippie movement and all that. Now, again, this is depending on who you're reading and what perspective you're getting, this is direct or maybe indirect, but like nonetheless heavily influenced by LSD, the counterculture. So that's the CIA's MKUltra drug du jour, right, at the time. And personally, I land on the side of saying that the CIA was not creating the counterculture, and you know, there are people who will, we got into this in previous episodes, there are people who will tell you that the counterculture itself was basically a creation of the CIA as a psyop. But that, I think, is a little too absurd of an explanation. But I think an important thing to note is that, like, they would have 100% been keeping tabs on significant elements of the counterculture, because they would have been the kind of subversive things, you know, subversive lifestyles that they would have been interested in tracking, because, you know, these the CIA, they're in service of the wealthy class, not the political left, which is more in service of, you know, egalitarian and labor, egalitarian politics and labor movements and things like that. So they would have definitely been interested in watching the evolution of the counterculture, but I don't think that they put LSD into the counterculture to create it. That is where I'm not convinced of that argument. But it's more
I always
paranoid.
think about it more like the CIA is the hot topic of the 2000s counterculture, where it took advantage of the movement and inserted itself and like kind of commodified it and made it safe and palatable for the common, and kind of like made it so bland that it petered out.
And you know, they're kind of like Brendan Urie. just like adapt as things change. Just
Yeah.
total cynical adaptation to put out, the new pop hit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Brendan Urie, Hot Topic. Both good analogies, I think.
One of the best ways to describe the CIA is with Panic at the Disco. So I think they are equivalent evils in this world.
They're close for sure. So Brussell took note of the extremely weird shit that was very often unspoken about the Manson story in the official narrative. Again, you mentioned Tom O'Neill, Chaos. Like, folks, if you want to do a really deep dive on this, just go read that book. That's a great jumping off point. But in one of her radio shows, Brussell interviews an LAPD officer who claimed that he had been told not to arrest Manson or any of the members of the family at Span Ranch leading up to the Tate LaBianca murders, despite the fact that it was very well known among the police that horrific crimes and abuse were going down at that location. Like, it was... And again, Tom O'Neill, he gets into how often people would be, like, of the members of the family would get arrested and then they'd get out, and they're just like, why are they letting these people out? Like, what? It's a whole thing. So Brussell also points out Manson's ability, speaking of getting out, to slip out of prison time with relative ease. And this is a pattern that tends to emerge when somebody is an informant. Manson, like James Earl Ray before him, had lived a life of petty crime until he became the monstrous figure he's now known as. So there's something about petty criminals. If you're analyzing, like, if you're trying to be like, okay, let's say these people were, taken by the FBI or the CIA and turned into some sort of tool, they tend to like to target these petty criminals. I mean, think of the leverage you have over somebody whose life is basically just doing shitty crimes. You give them the ability to escape their jail time, and also, like, their street level, like, criminality can kind of get you information. There's a lot of different reasons why they might do this. And Manson fits that profile as well, and was constantly in and out of just, like, he would skip, like, parole and stuff, and it would just not be followed up on. And so that's Manson leading up to, the establishment of the family. There's also this whole thing where he gets, like, he becomes integrated in the, like, music scene in California, even though he has absolutely no reason to be there. And it's sort of like, why was he there? Like, he was like, he knew the guys in the Beach Boys and stuff. It's like, why is Manson here? Big question mark. So Manson would wind up in the Haight-Ashbury district, where he would spend time as a patient of the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic, and the Free Clinic was a direct result of the counterculture and the hippie movement, so it was founded to offer free care for the youth who were, in the throes of substance abuse and mental health crisis. So the Free Clinic was there to, provide free support for people who were in need of it. Brussell's suspicions about Manson and what happened here at the Haight-Ashbury, again, after her death, seems, somewhat vindicated, because, again, Tom O'Neill in Chaos points out that a man who lived nearby the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic, this man was given allowance to recruit patients from the clinic for quote-unquote experiments. That man was none other than MKUltra freakazoid and elephant killer Dr. Jolyon West.
Damn. Okay. So this is another place that you can find people in need that you can get leverage over and use for your experiments.
Yeah, if you want to target addicts, you can go to the Haight-Ashbury and have your pick of the litter. And apparently Jolly West had some sort of deal with the founder of the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic to just get experiment subjects. Like, it's really insane when you say it out loud. And it's not too crazy to, this is, somewhat speculative, I guess, but it's not too crazy to think that Manson may have been recruited by Jolly West during his stint at the Haight-Ashbury. There's also this side thing where when you look at how the family operated and how Manson treated these kids that he had as the family, it was like there was remarkable similarities between how he treated them and the methodology of torture and interrogation through drugs that the CIA did with MKUltra. Very similar.
Oh, sure. So he picked up some tricks.
Yeah. So for Brussell, Manson was once again a petty criminal who was transformed into this patsy of sorts. A patsy, I guess, for the Tate LaBianca murders, but also more broadly a patsy for the death of the counterculture, which the CIA was, again, like we said, definitely monitoring. She believed that Manson had been selected and intentionally crafted to have the image of a hippie to become this new face of terror, and associated with these, being the mastermind of these murders or whatever, and his whole vision of a race war. I don't know how much you know about Manson.
Some. I've come across him in enough stuff that I have the idea.
But so this Manson as the face, as somehow being an emerging face of counterculture in this way, this can't really be reconciled with this idyllic free love hippie movement stuff, right? So she basically says he hit this image of him as the murderous hippie was crafted probably by the CIA to help create the downfall of the counterculture, basically.
Sure. And that's a much more reasonable theory than they entirely masterminded the countercultural movement.
Yeah, exactly. So Brussell believed that the true murderer, the true person sort of responsible, was this guy Charlie Tex Watson, who's one of the core members of Manson's family. So Manson was basically the figurehead of, hippie, freak, druggy murder. And regardless of just how much it was directly orchestrated, the death of the counterculture was absolutely politically expedient for the right-wing political aims of intelligence agencies. That it just 100%. So whether or not this was actually just directly manipulated, it's still good for what the CIA wants, And so for Brussell, Patty Hearst and the SLA goes hand in hand with the Manson family as symbols of the death of the counterculture. So in The Realist, she writes a series of articles talking about the Symbionese Liberation Army and Patty Hearst, which the SLA, they were a, I guess, far left radical political group in the Bay Area. And they would basically do forms of political action and protest that were completely, utterly counterproductive for the aims of left political progress. And ultimately, this is Mae Brussell says this is the point. This is to alienate the public's image, the symbol of what leftist politics are, and turn people off of left-wing politics. So the SLA was led by this guy, Donald DeFreeze, who is from, I believe, Cleveland, Ohio, technically my hometown. Technically where I was born.
Okay.
And again, this is a guy who is a fucking petty crook. And he would wind up in this Vacaville medical facility in California, where allegedly, and according to Mae Brussell, he would be subjected to hypnosis and mind control experiments, which this would have been at the behest of Colton Westbrook, who was a guy, I believe he did come up in our discussions of this stuff. This is another mind control guy who works with the CIA, and worked with the director William Colby. And I guess DeFreeze was sort of told that he was going to be the new version of Malcolm X, of the new version of Martin Luther King Jr. And so then the SLA kidnaps the heiress, Patty Hearst. And this is, again, not a deep dive. She is the granddaughter of William Randolph Hearst, newspaper publisher, politician. She is an heiress. That is the term that you will see used for Patty Hearst. And they kidnap her, and supposedly what they're doing is brainwashing her to then go commit crimes like bank robbery with the SLA. Like, she's brainwashed. They take control of her mind. And probably the big infamous thing beyond Patty Hearst that the SLA is known for is they murdered this guy, Marcus Foster, who was the Oakland Unified School District Superintendent. And again, we're not going down this road right now, but basically when you look at why they killed this guy, it doesn't. Mae Brussell will say it doesn't make sense. Like, why they would do it's another counterproductive thing for a supposedly leftist organization to do. So, at one point the SLA gets into a standoff with the police, and in this standoff the police shoot, defreeze, and kill a bunch of members and then burn a bunch of them to death. And this is they die. Patty Hearst ends up basically getting whisked away and survives the ordeal. Mae Brussell seems to think that the plan was originally to have her be killed during all this, but she ends up surviving. So I have here in 1974 an interviewer for the underground newspaper, the Berkeley Barb, where the interviewer asks Mae to explain her theory of the SLA as a political counter to the growing left of the 1960s. So these are her own words. It's a little long-winded, but here's what she said. The script from the very beginning was to have the nice, rich, white princess kidnapped by the mean black prison escapees, to drag out the scenario until the whole nation was involved with Patty's fate. Which, just to be clear, that happened. Like, it was a huge story when it was going down. And then to sacrifice her. Donald DeFreeze and Thera Wheeler would be the patsies. DeFreeze would be the main patsy, the first black Lee Harvey Oswald. He would wind up dead or in jail, silenced like Sirhan Sirhan. Jack Ruby, Lee Harvey Oswald, James Earl Ray, Arthur Bremer, and many other patsies. The intelligence agencies behind the plot didn't plan that Patty Hearst, Donald DeFreeze, and Thera Wheeler would survive and tell their story. The whole plot for the paramilitary takeover of the United States might come out in the open if the truth is revealed about this kidnapping. The Hearst kidnapping is a domestic conspiracy. It has to be understood in its historical context. The past 10 years have seen the murder of a president, a senator, congressmen, civil rights leaders, and hundreds of other victims of what I believe are related conspiracies. The next 10 years will be bloody and fearful for all minorities in the United States. It appears that there will be a concerted effort on the part of the Defense Intelligence Agency to continue the policies of the Nazis they brought into this country following World War II. Genocide will be made possible by the same techniques used in Germany. The point should be very clear. Given enough violence, murders, and kidnappings in the USA, the new hospitals, prisons, and airports will be used for mass genocide. There's nothing going on in our economy to assure housing, jobs, or education for minorities. Congress is purposely impounding funds, cutting off school busing, and denying legal aid for the poor. President Nixon is moving to reduce welfare funds drastically at a time when job opportunities for minorities are scarce. All steps towards equal opportunity and racial progress are being halted. These actions are said to be the results of the quote-unquote energy crisis. Preceding the Hearst kidnapping in February 1974, there was a series of carefully staged, senseless, motiveless killings. They were blamed upon cults. People who survived the murderous attacks described their assailants as zombies. A series of so-called Fillmore fires took place before the killings. They were named after Fillmore Street in San Francisco, a street in the black part of town. CIA arsonists have been known to do such things as burn their own churches and set fire to many buildings in order to blame hippies. The association of minorities with murder and arson was achieved.
Damn. Okay.
It's wild to read that. And there's so many other stories, especially in it's in chaos and stuff, of just intelligence agents like basically dressing as hippies and trying to ingratiate themselves with the counterculture. It's just wild. It's just wild to read. So those are her, but those are her own words on like what she thinks is going on here. It's to smear, smear the political left, but especially the black community. Which
it's classist and anti-leftist and racist and all these things.
100%.
It is entirely the book doesn't change that much.
Yeah.
We're still going after violent leftists.
Yeah, and again, I would also point out that she's saying this stuff well before COINTELPRO was a publicly... I will say, I do believe COINTELPRO was a thing that if you were an activist, especially like a black activist, during these times, you knew that there was shit like this going on. Maybe you didn't have a name for it, you didn't have the name COINTELPRO, but you knew that these things were being infiltrated by folks like the FBI and the CIA. You knew that was happening. So it wasn't a well-known public thing, but I guess I'm just trying to say it was kind of known depending on who you were. And Mae Brussell was one of the people who was at the forefront of, acknowledging that this was, a lot of this was, class and race motivated.
Yeah.
So according to Brussell, the SLA, in basically doing a bunch of heinous shit, served to fuck up the image of the political left, something that was gaining more traction in the wake of the counterculture of the 60s. And again, the CIA probably saw coming. And for Brussell, both Manson and the SLA seemed to fit under the banner of the CIA's Operation Chaos. So again, this is very brief, but Chaos was a domestic espionage operation launched by our favorite guy, James Jesus Angleton.
Hello.
And this would have been under the direction of Richard Helms, by the way. So between 1967 and 1974, the CIA, under Operation Chaos, conducted domestic surveillance against anti-war groups and groups that they deemed subversive. It's not unlike COINTELPRO, I guess. Ostensibly, like officially, the operation was meant to determine how compromised by foreign influence groups like people like the Black Panthers and the Young Lords were. That's I think if you go and look at like the Wikipedia page, it's like, yeah, they wanted to see, what's the foreign influence on like anti-war groups. For Mae Brussell and a lot of other researchers, these operations weren't just this sort of like data collection and analysis of foreign influence. They were aiming to weaken and destroy the emerging left-wing politics and anti-war sentiment that were blossoming amid the counterculture. So that's a real brief blurb on Chaos. That's too much to get into right now because there's whole books and stuff on it, and it's worth talking about, though. So all that stuff I just said, this is sort of the Mae Brussell perspective, a little editorializing by me. In 1987, Mae Brussell was working on investigating a horrific story that I mentioned in a previous episode, in which over 30 children were allegedly sexually abused at a child care center at the Presidio military base in San Francisco. Central to this case was Army intelligence officer Michael Aquino, a deeply enmeshed member of Anton LaVey's Church of Satan, so high-ranking military and Satanist, which is just a fact I don't necessarily know what to do with. But this is the key guy in the Presidio abuse case, and this is what she's investigating. In the middle of her investigation, Brussell was struck with a fast onset cancer, and she passed away on October 3rd, 1988. So to this day, some Brussels sprouts point out that Brussell herself believed that this is a thing that she believed.
Okay.
That the CIA had managed to develop a cancer-inducing drug that they may have given to Jack Ruby, Lee Harvey Oswald's murderer, presumably to shut him up. And so the question becomes, did the CIA, the people who created the heart attack gun, mind you, which I've seen footage of, I've seen them handing over the heart attack gun and explain how it works at the like 1974 hearings, where they, the CIA was in trouble, got those slaps on the wrist. Did they kill Mae Brussell for getting too close to the Presidio case? That is a thing that will come up when people talk about her. I don't know if I necessarily believe that, but, either they did it or they didn't. Our old saying.
Yeah, it is either really awful timing or really good timing, depending on which side of it you're on. Yeah. And I don't know what to do with that exactly without some more firsthand evidence.
Yeah, it's another one of those things where I think about just saying the CIA developed cancer-inducing drugs, which I just know that's a thing that Mae Brussell said at one point, but don't know what that's based on in her research at this point. Maybe I'll learn that down the line. It's one of those things where just putting the idea out into the world, like, what does that do? Because on the one hand, there are some pretty suspicious deaths linked to the CIA in the history. But then you also have, I'm not going to pull this guy's name. Do you remember the guy who was like a UFO whistleblower for Majestic 12 who, like, he claimed to also... this is the guy who claimed to have been witness and surviving the underground military base alien-human fight with lasers and stuff.
Oh,
you know who I'm talking about? I forget this guy's fucking name. I should know it, and I'm sorry, dear. There are listeners who are like screaming at their phone or their computer right now because I forget this guy's name. But like
Paul Benowitz?
No, not Benowitz. Not Benowitz.
No. Sorry, I googled and that was the first name that came up. I was trying to figure out Phil Schneider.
It might be
maybe?
Schneider. It might be Phil Schneider. You know what? I'm gonna look up Phil Schneider and I'll tell you because I can picture him in my mind. It's Phil Schneider. It's Phil Schneider.
For some reason, well, I guess now we know what reason. If you search Dulce bass guy, Paul Benowitz is the first result.
Which is funny.
But Phil Schneider.
That's
second.
Funny because I have a feeling that the googling Dulce bass guy maybe would not have yielded Paul Benowitz like 10 years ago if you searched it, and maybe
I wish I would have
been Phil Schneider popping up, but
I will say when I was doing all the Dulce bass stuff back when I first, when we first covered it on this podcast, I didn't come up with Paul Benowitz did not get referenced much, if at all. And now it's very common.
But if you'll recall, there's a whole conspiracy surrounding his death. But I seem to remember also reading that the counter argument is that, like, people are like, oh, he was murdered because he knew too much. But I think that there was also evidence that he had basically cooked himself and given himself cancer because he would, like, sit under the... fuck. Do you know what I'm talking about?
He kept, like, radioactive material under his bed to sleep on, and it gave him cancer.
This is... The point I'm arriving at is that regardless of whether or not it's true the CIA somehow fed Mae Brussell cancer-inducing drugs or shot so-and-so with the heart attack gun, that idea being out there makes the truth itself suspect. So, like, the idea that Phil Schneider was, like, assassinated for knowing the truth about Dulce bass, which, as we know, is a total hokum, that's going to persist forever, because of stories like that, where it's like we can say, yeah, the CIA shoots people with heart attack guns, like, which again is a real thing. You can find a video of the heart attack gun, but like also, the truth itself is like suspect. And I think my big takeaway from this is like not to sit here and speculate over whether or not the CIA gave Mae Brussell cancer. I don't know how valuable that is. I think the big takeaway from all of this is that Brussell had a good framework for analyzing the shadowy underground politics of the state and the fascism in there, like the fascism of the state, like that's where I think that she is very much worth taking away from. Like, so
yeah,
it's these things are so baffling. Nothing is ever truly solved in the realm of this kind of conspiracy research, but I think that if you look at it with the right perspective, you can come away, I guess, I don't know, having a good framework for thinking about, fascism and the horrors of the United States, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's Mae Brussell, Niall. I think down the line, I won't do, we were talking before we started, and it's like, I don't think I want to necessarily do, like, Mae Brussell addendum, but I will make sure to mention her, because I think I want to cover some of the stories that she talked about, and I'll make sure to mention her, because she has a lot of research that's relevant today, some that's been expanded on. She's been vindicated in a lot of ways by some of the research that came after her death. Yeah, I don't know. She's interesting.
Yeah, very worth covering. I did not really know much about her to begin with, and now I know far more.
Yeah.
So that very worthwhile.
So now, are you ready for a big question?
Always, Kyle.
Okay, so I just wrote here, how do we make this one funny?
Sure.
I genuinely, I sat down and was like, yeah, we like start with Nazis, end with Manson and the SLA. I don't know. I don't have a funny question. Niall, so this is my first big question that's an absolute total fucking cop-out.
It's a total punt.
I'm asking you to tell me, how do we make this one funny? That's my question.
I mean, like, there's always puns. She called the people Brussels sprouts.
Okay.
Maybe, we could try to make a full meal.
Ooh. So like Richard Steak.
That's an option.
We have to find a guy named Richard Steak, and we have to groom him to become a conspiracy researcher with a Mae Brussell mindset. So you get Steak
and Jack compound butter.
That would be good.
Yeah.
Some people may have to change their names in this operation we're developing here. But I think that's a great idea. We can get Mae Brussell, Jack compound butter, Richard Steak. What else do you eat with this meal?
I mean, wasn't there was earlier we had Lafoot.
Lafitte.
If you want to get weird with it,
Lafitte. That's for after dinner. That's for
yeah. A little after dinner Lafitte.
A little after dinner Lafitte.
Is there someone with is there someone we could bring in with like a nice aperitif or something for like a post dinner cocktail?
Okay. We're gonna I have to be careful about how I say this.
Sure. I'm excited to hear what this is.
We're gonna quote unquote take RFK Jr. And we're gonna reprogram him. We're gonna re-educate RFK Jr. And this won't be any sort of elite. Like, we're gonna have a nice discussion with RFK Jr. and he'll talk in that weird way he does
through reason and logic.
Yeah, and we'll be able to be like, listen, we need you to change your name to Ronald Mint Julep. And we need you.
Yeah. RMJ.
We want you to enter this program that we've developed where you become a Mae Brussell head. Because we're kind of trying to create a meal with people's names right now. The details will come
this is for a very off the cuff podcast bit. It's really important. Much more important than you doing another video doing pull-ups with Kid Rock.
This is God, that I've never have I seen a video where I just assumed in between the takes they were fucking the shit out of each other.
I don't even want to imagine.
Have you
that.
seen the video?
You've
seen the video, right? Yeah.
Oh, I have seen it. Yes. I don't want to imagine what you were saying.
Sure, that's fair.
The thing that you implied.
I mean, it just is like, I mean, you're watching that and you're just like, just fuck already.
I think they're just two cool dudes watching porn together, you know?
Yeah. You know that like RFK Jr. is the type of guy who's just like want to watch a stag film with me.
There has to the fucking movie theater at the White House has to be just just the action scenes from Steven Seagal films mixed with just the topless scenes from every sex comedy of the 70s and 80s. On
and
loop.
You know that if you took like a blacklight flashlight in there, it would just be absolutely covered in semen. So
I just grossed myself.
Yeah, no,
out.
It's pretty gross.
I don't know what
it's
to do
pretty
with
gross.
that.
But I guess the way I see this is we create our cool, everybody has like a cool food item name. Maybe it's like a code name, and it's following the legacy of Mae Brussell, who we respect, rest in peace. And we're just gonna kill two birds with one stone. Metaphorically, there's no actual killing here. We're gonna take RFK Jr., take that beautiful mind, reshape it. And then presumably we send him back into, the world, and he can do good work.
Yeah,
we can fix our. I mean, we can fix him. I guess is what I'm saying.
We already know he doesn't really have any actual deeply held convictions.
Exactly,
because none of these people do. So you can convince him that somehow his love for raw milk, which is definitely not a dog whistle at all, should actually instead be a labor reform.
Sure,
we can work this out.
God, I think some of the few strong convictions he has is about killing wild animals. So we're gonna have to work on that aspect a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Niall. This is maybe the best idea we've come up with ever.
Yeah, it was a bit of a free-form big question at the end here because it just kind of turned into free association on various concepts. But what else do you expect? Sometimes at the end of a three-parter, you've used all the
juice.
The normal prompts for questions that you can come up with, and you got to get a little freaky with it.
And that's why we're going to have RFK Jr. change his last name to Mint Julep. In case anyone was in case you skipped to the end right here
to make a full meal.
To make a full meal of it.
You have steak, compound butter on top with some Brussels sprouts. So maybe the butter drips on those
I'm
too.
Hungry.
You make kind of it would be I feel like that is a meal that RFK would enjoy.
Yeah, and that's how we kind of get him in initially. That's how we sort of. Yeah. It's sort of like luring a wild animal with like a palm full of nuts or whatever.
Is he like a steak that is just like it was like kind of it kissed the pan on both sides and is raw in the middle, or is he a well done?
He doesn't. I can't imagine he has good taste in anything, so I'm assuming it's a well done steak.
See, I was trying to think it's the
or you
opposite,
think he needs it like
things
raw?
that could give him worms.
Right, that's true.
Yeah, he like you use like a torch to like give just a tiny bit of color to each side, and then you just go ham on it, and you end up with worms.
Honestly, we did all this work here to develop this idea, which I do love, but also I think the takeaway I'm having right now is that we should be treating RFK Jr. kind of like a zoo animal. That's sort of my takeaway.
If you know anything about the man, I think you come to that. That is a very reasonable conclusion to draw.
Well, anyway, that was. Hey, Mae Brussell.
Sometimes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sometimes you just there are certain things that just have to come out, and sometimes a little bit of that's just off gassing the daily intake of shit a little bit. Sometimes,
No, I feel that. That's Mae Brussell, all 3 parts. Thank you for joining me, Niall. That was I enjoyed. Yeah. I enjoyed learning about that.
Me too.
Anyways, you ready for some business?
Yeah, so if you want to find us, we're on all your favorite podcatchers. Look up It Gets Weird wherever you find podcasts, and you'll find us sitting right there with our entire back catalog, free for your listening powers.
We are on Blue Sky at It Gets Weird. Give us a follow. We're on Twitch, twitch.tv/itgetsweird. You better believe we have an email. Email us at itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. Hit us up with a nice story. I've noticed something. We haven't had too many conspiracies in our inbox. I'd be curious if we had listeners who had some conspiracy stories or something they researched. I will say, I have on the side, shouts out to a Discord user, a Patreon donor, who has hit me up about a particular story that I think I still need to reply to them in my DMs, for which I apologize, but they hit me up and they've been kind of slow drip telling me about a cool, interesting story that I plan to cover in the future, so shouts out. But folks, email us, itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. If you have a cool conspiracy story, an interesting conspiracy story like that, let us know. Just let us know how we should address you. We might read it out on the show. And then, of course, you want to support It Gets Weird Podcast. I'm saying that like a hypnotist. You want to support It Gets Weird Podcast. Give us your money. We have a $1 tier, a $2 tier, and a $5 tier. The $1 tier is the tip. It's the tip jar. I'll say it. It's the tip jar for the Patreon. You just give us $1, and you say thanks for doing what you do. But if you want bonus content, you got $1 more, the $2 tier, where we do It Gets Weird TV, where Niall and I watch weird television every other week. We just finished the X-Files. I think at the $2 tier, the plan, we have maybe a little fun side plan in between TV seasons for you all.
Yeah, don't worry that the poll hasn't gone up yet. We do have a plan.
But the point is, there's 3 seasons of discussion about the X-Files on the Patreon at the $2 tier, plus some other television shows we've watched in the past. And then there's the $5 tier. At the $5 tier, you're going to get another show, World of Weird, in the off weeks of It Gets Weird TV. And Niall and I talk about whatever the hell we want. I think one of our recent discussions had to do with some interesting stuff. I was reading about some UFO news and stuff, but we also talk movies and music. We talk all kinds of stuff, and we talk shit. I'll say it. You want to hear us talk shit? You want to hear me talk shit? Oh, that's worth $5, I think.
Kyle roasts some people behind the paywall.
I do. Might be one of your faves. Be careful. So, whether you donate to the $2 tier or the $5 tier, you get access to the main show 2 days early on Friday instead of Sunday on Patreon, and you get access to the Discord where we have a bunch of listeners just like you right now hanging out, chatting about Bigfoot and shit. So please donate to the Patreon, patreon.com/itgetsweirdpodcast. But if you can't afford it, we understand. We still love you, and we appreciate you listening. We get it. Sometimes you can't shell out the $5. Totally understandable. But the least you could do, because we will never advertise to you, and therefore we don't really advertise our show anywhere. Least you could do is word of mouth. Let some people know about It Gets Weird Podcast. Tell some friends. Tell some family members who you think would enjoy us. Tell coworkers. I do believe we have had multiple people tell us that they have told their coworkers about our show, which seems a little bit like a dangerous game, but Godspeed, we appreciate you nonetheless.
Thank you for support the show. This has been It Gets Weird, and I've been Niall. No risk, no reward.
Yes. So please tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your congressman all about It Gets Weird Podcast. And I'm Kyle signing out.